listening to Tom's Engaging HR podcast, where we're amplifying, humanizing, and engaging leaders who are making work better for employees every day. Thanks for joining us for a fun and engaging conversation. Let's go.
Welcome back to Tom's Engaging HR. Really excited about this episode. Again, a long time coming. We have a CEO, a founder, an author with us today. Originally from Doylestown, Ohio, John Bernatovicz comes from a family with diverse achievements, including a father who's in healthcare industry. His artist was a mother, and he is the youngest of 3 siblings. He's married 26 years, has 2 amazing children, Will and Mallory, and he combined their names to name his company Willory. When not with his family, John is often found honing his golf skills, having achieved impressive feats on the course, including besting Tiger Woods in a tournament. Professionally, he has founded 6 companies and currently serves as president of Willory, while also being best-selling author and sought-after keynote speaker in the HR industry. I am absolutely delighted to welcome John to Tom's Engaging HR. Welcome.
Tom, I appreciate that. Nice job. I know my parents will be proud looking down. I always try to remember where I came from. And at the same time, speaking of that, I know you're currently employed by ADP, and I formerly was as well. And it's really nice to make another friend. ADP is full of great people, and I'd like to add you to that list. And I'm super excited for the opportunity today.
Thanks for that. Super excited to have you. And I knew you before I even went to ADP. I didn't even know you had a connection there. As soon as I got to ADP, you reached out with congrats, and I really appreciate you taking the time to connect. It seems like a really strong alumni of that organization, and ADP, everyone there has been really great too. So I'm pretty excited.
You should be. That's the number one thing I miss about it. I've been away from there for a number of years, but it's the people. I'm still thankful to have many current ADP friends and former ADPers that either retired or left. That there is a bond there. That's for sure. It's a unique sorority, fraternity, however you want to look at it. It's a tough place to work, like a lot of corporate America settings are,
Yep.
But it's incredibly rewarding, and you can do great work. Good luck.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate it. It really, that's the biggest driver so far. I like the platform. I like the product. Everyone knows ADP, but really it's the people that I'm sitting down with and going to meetings with every day. My boss is fantastic. So yeah, I'm pretty happy camper. I'm going to make some waves over there. When we were first talking, you were talking about the go-giver mindset, that you had adopted back from your time back at ADP. Tell me a little bit about that.
I was fortunate enough early on in my career at ADP to realize the power of a professional network, probably well before it was socialized or something that people would encourage you to have intention to build. And after a while, because I was incented and frankly trained to ask for referrals, I used to work in the small business side of ADP's sales organization, and we were encouraged to go to CPAs and banks and clients and see how they were doing, bring them a booklet or a pen or whatever, and then at the same time ask them for a referral. And that worked out fine. I was fortunate to develop a lot of great relationships, but I read the book. I was recommended to read the book, Go Giver. And in the midst of it, the number one way to get a referral is to give a referral. And I finally realized that there's a power of being unselfish in sales and taking a contrarian view of how people were looking at networking. And really what I tried to do was find like-minded people who wanted to serve their clients, who had the correct true north that I was looking for, and at the same time be able to serve them and the needs they had, whether that be personal or professional. And so it was one of those unique situations where I felt like I had to take the time to develop and foster those relationships. And instead of always being there with my hand out asking for them, I decided, well, what do you need? How can I best be of service to you? And it was one of those situations where I feel like that pivot for me personally made a huge difference in my life. And at the same time, it ended up bringing me profound business results where I was less worried about the outcome of getting a referral, and I was more interested in getting to know the person and what made them tick and what issues they had and what cool things in their bio would catch
Yep.
people's attention. And that's where I focus my time and attention.
I know a lot of the time I spend is not doing the type of outreach that I'm coached to and that salespeople everywhere are coached to. It's more of I'm who I am. I want to know who you are, and how can we help, and how can we work together, and can we find some mutual ways to go together. Like that's essentially the whole outreach, which goes against every VP of sales that might listen to this is like shrugging and like beating their head against the wall. But I really feel like in this day and age, that's the way to do it.
That's probably why you and I are on this show right now, and we're attracted professionally to having the conversation. And I think that hopefully leads to our fellowship and bond at the same time, maybe business down the road. Who knows? And I will tell you, I don't think the VP of sales is still there anymore at ADP, but I'll never forget being called to ask one of my prospects a question that I was not comfortable with asking. And it was really not an inappropriate question. It was just accelerating the sales cycle so that we could hit a number that we needed for a quarter. And I remember vividly telling the VP of sales that I would make the call. And as soon as I hung up the phone, I knew in my mind I wasn't going to make the call because I didn't want to put the client on our timeline as opposed to allow them to go through their timeline. He called back and asked. I told them, they didn't answer. I thought that was the most honest answer I could give. And then, of course, 3 months later, as we had planned out, that client signed with ADP and became a very happy customer.
Yeah, it's always a thin line. That's the razor's edge, right? Like, what's best for the customer? What's best for the people that are paying you? That's your employer. How do you merge those two? And I've been in several situations similar, and that's one of the toughest spots to be. But I'm glad you got the deal done and got them the solution that was best for them.
I didn't like being insubordinate quietly. That was tough.
Of
And like
course
you
not.
said, they're paying the bills, and and I understood where the VP was coming from. I just didn't have at the time. Now I would have told him to his face, no, I'm not going to do that, and this is the reason why. But I was still new in my career,
Yep.
and I didn't have the courage and probably the equity, I would call it, the years of sales success equity that you build up and your reputation. I didn't have that. I was newer, and they needed the deal. And anyway, you didn't ask me to be on the show to talk about war stories and the old sales days at ADP.
I just asked to be on to talk about it. Wherever we end up talking about, it's all good with me. I'm sure with the listeners as well. All right, so I do want to ask something about the bio, and then we can get into the topic at hand. Why we definitely asked you to come on the show.
Yeah, I am from Doylestown, Ohio. That's where I'm from. I promise. That's all you care about.
I cared about that much
Doylestown.
more than the Tiger Woods speeding story. I definitely.
You want to hear the Tiger story?
I mean,
That's cool.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, no, I'm totally happy to share. It's kind of funny. As I sit in my office, I'm staring at a picture a friend of mine made for me, and it's the scoreboard of my name above Tiger Woods's, and my wife loves that, loves the story, and loves everything that goes along with it. And the coolest part is it's true. Number one, it's a true story. I did beat Tiger Woods once in a golf tournament. I was 18 years old. He was 16 years old. We were playing in the Western Junior, which is the second oldest junior golf tournament in the country, right behind the United States Golf Association, or the U.S. Amateur. It was the Western Junior 75th anniversary, and it was in Chicago because that's where the Western Golf Association is headquartered. And it was at this really exclusive golf course. The finals were at this really exclusive golf course. All those things made it easy for me to sign up. I drive out there. We play our practice round. This is back when they had newspapers that you used to read. They had them they delivered them into the hotel room, and the top of the sports page was
remember those days.
Young phenom from California travels to Chicago to play in Western Junior, and there's a story about Tiger Woods. And I'd known him, had heard of him, had never played in a tournament with him. Well, the way the tournament worked was you had around 200 golfers, and you played 2 rounds, and then the top 64 players played in a very similar thing to the NCAA tournament, which with this being the time of season that we're in, you may be familiar with. And they put the top 64 players into brackets. Anyway, I was fortunate to be playing really well. and I won my first, second, third match, and we got to what was defined as the Elite Eight of this tournament. And there were not many people left at the golf course, and I won my match in the morning, and then we had lunch. And one of my buddies that I knew, who I'd played in a golf tournament with from California, had said, "Hey, I got knocked out. Do you want to have lunch with my friend Tiger?" I said, "Of course." I read his name in the paper, blah, blah, blah. And he comes over, introduces himself. Well, his friend introduced him to me. And my buddy of mine that was still with me, who was from Akron, he and I traveled out together. He didn't make the finals, but he hung out with me. I sat for 30 minutes having lunch with Tiger Woods, and he didn't say a word to me or didn't look at me for 29 minutes and 58 seconds, other than when he sat down to say hello and he got up to leave and say goodbye. And somebody was telling me that was part of his Jedi mind games. He was trying to play against me, because the way that match was, if he would have won his match in the Elite Eight and I would have won mine, we would have met in the air quote Final Four. Well, as it works out, I ended up winning my match and Tiger lost his. So technically I finished higher in that tournament. I wish he would have won, and I wish I would have had a chance to play against him. I wish I could have had a chance to beat him, because that would have made the story even better.
100%.
But that's the truth of it. I ended up losing in the finals, finished second in the Western Junior, and what an incredible experience.
Wow, that's a great story. That's a great experience. I knew you were a golf enthusiast, but now I know why you're a golf enthusiast. That's impressive.
It was fun. I get asked, it's funny. I'll tell another quick story about ADP. And I realized when I was younger in my career, mid-20s to 30s, and I was selling to or working with a lot of clients who were more mature in their age and in their experience. These were CIOs, CFOs, heads of HR. I had to figure out a way to try to connect with these people. And I used my golf experience, having gone to a Division I school, played Division I golf, had met a number of really great people throughout the golf world, Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods, who I met momentarily, and David Duval and Justin Leonard and all these people that you may know of or have heard. Mm-hmm. And I would use that to say, that was any way I could get golf and the story into it. And I told that story to that same prospect, ironically, and I'm not lying about that. I told that same story to the prospect that I mentioned earlier about he was a big golfer and he went to Kent and blah, blah, blah. And I told him the Tiger Woods story. And I do not kid you, Tom. He took me by my arm and walked me around their C-suite and said, "Hey, Joe, it's their ADP rep. He beat Tiger Woods." Told the story to their CFO, to their VP of HR, to their CEO. And I got in my car and I told myself, I'm going to get that deal. I'm definitely going to win. I'm going to get that deal, not because of Tiger Woods, just because of how that person's response was to the story. And it's certainly distinguishable. I joke that he and I have had uniquely different careers, but I'll take mine over his.
I love it. I love it. Your back's probably better for it too, I guess.
Back and knees, and I think my reputation too, in some regards.
This exact morning that we're recording this, I was talking to my son, and I got him some Callaway practice balls in the old Easter basket. He's like, I like golf. It's hard, but not a lot of my buddies are playing it. I said, well, guess what? All the people you're going to do business with for the rest of your life, you're going to run into a lot of people that are playing it, and it's a fun sport, and it's going to open a lot of doors if you figure it out. But the sport itself is great.
I could not agree with you more, Dad. Yeah, it's change your life kind of sport. The issue is when you're younger, the sports that require a lot of athleticism, basketball, football, soccer, are very popular. But I will tell you this, in my five-year high school reunion, the star football player on our football team came over to me and said, "I wish I had played on the golf team than I had played football." I said, "Wait, no way. No way." He said, "Yeah, my knee is shot." And he was practicing his golf swing while we're in the restaurant of this 5-year reunion. And my mind was blown. And then from there on, it's just golf has become more and more popular. It's never been more popular than it is today. And my guess is your son can make golf cool. And it's an amazing sport. I love it. I love every part of it.
Well, I want my daughter to play because that's one of the only NCAA scholarships that goes unfulfilled nationally as women's NCAA golf scholarship. So I'm gonna try to get her out there too. As a final piece, my dad, I got to give him credit. He told me all of this advice when I was 9, and I golfed for a bit and then threw it out the window. And now I'm, you know, fighting to stay under 50 on most rounds. So it's cheer everyone out there. Listen to your parents; they're telling you the good stuff. You could
They know.
you
They
might
know.
see over my shoulder. My dad was a caddy at Augusta National as his retirement job, so I've got his old caddy hat back there and name tag, and we can go on about that.
Oh, cool. I want to hear that. Now I want to hear that story another time.
Yeah, I got all kinds of good golf stories from my dad at Augusta National for sure. But I want to talk about your story. Will and Mallory coming together, Willory, your company. Tell me about your company, Willory. What are you doing briefly? And then did that lead to, or is that totally independent from HR Like a Boss? I want to just start with a strong base here of where it started and where we're going.
Yeah, without a doubt, they are joined at the hip with one another for sure. I think my experience in having worked in and served the HR community for almost 30 years, in the last almost 15 now, having Willory really focused in on our staffing and technology consulting support. We are a headhunter and a temporary staff augmentation firm devoted to the HR and payroll community. And then we provide HR technology support, which means client side vendor selection and strategy, advisory support, and then what we call full blown client side implementation, optimization, and transformation support, which is a lot of project management, functional and technical expertise. And over the years, I met a lot of really great people that were trying their best and delivering at a high level in some cases. And then, unfortunately, Tom, as I'm sure you have had this experience, I met a lot of really bad HR leaders, not bad people, just not necessarily effective in their job, working for
Right.
companies with bad cultures and high turnover and challenges and struggles and frustrations and litigation and name in the paper for all the reasons why you don't want to get your name in the paper. And I had this general inspiration. You mentioned my parents. They both unfortunately passed in 2019 and 2020. They were my biggest fans. They were the wind behind my sails. I hit the lottery when I
That's
was
great.
born into my family. And I decided to pay tribute to them by writing my book. I thought it was the best platform to create business and art together. And it was the closest platform that I had any generalized skill in. I was and still do not think that I'm an author, but I was fortunate enough to pen a tale about amazingly awesome HR by observing really great and really bad HR at the same time. It felt a bit like parenting. I don't know if you maybe feel this way. I hope my kids do as well. You learn almost as much by the bad things that your parents do that you don't like or care for, as opposed to the great example that they lead. I remember vividly saying to myself, I'll
Fair.
never do that to my kids, something that my dad did to me that I didn't really care for. And I haven't done that thing. But the things that my dad did to me that I didn't like were I could count on one finger, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And as a result of all that together, having 30 years in the industry, having seen a lot of really bad and really phenomenal HR, this unique time in my life where my parents were both passed, and I was trying to figure out how do I pay tribute to them, as well as achieve a bucket list item that I wanted to write a book like others you may know, friends of mine, Tim Sackett, Steve Brown, Chris Dunn, Ben
Yep.
Eubanks, they had all written books, and I knew them. They weren't that different than me, other than they had taken the risk to write a book. And all that came together to where today we're using HR Like a Boss as a thank you to our clients. We're using it as a way to open doors to potential customers to have conversations. I've started a podcast 4 years ago that we're almost to our 150th episode of interviewing people like you and I are doing right here to create that unique relationship and bond. And on top of all that, the the real reason why, now that I've said all that I've said and I've thought through all this, why I'm doing this is that I believe that amazingly awesome HR starts before you get into your very first job. I think the perception of how people that are new to their career in college or are in a different vocation and wish to get into HR, they have to believe wholeheartedly that they want to connect people to the purpose of the business, and they're going to work their tail off. They're going to take great ownership, and they're going to love what they do, no matter the craziness that they come into. And as a result, I've committed this year. We have 30 students in the program. My hope is that every graduating senior who aspires to get their degree in human resources, that we have a study group for them, and that we subsidize the cost for their SHRM tests so they can get their SHRM CP.
I love it.
And start out in that community of HR professionals and love on them, care for them, give them the support they need to reach the success that they want. That's a long-winded story to a complicated question that I've been working on for the last 5 years to answer.
I think you did a beautiful job there, and I love that it's a tribute to your parents and connecting that to your purpose. I think that's fantastic. You talk about a lot purposeful commitment to yourself and then aligning that with your business, which is what anyone that comes into contact with you can see that you're doing that. But tell our listeners, tell our audience that might not know you as well, what do you mean by that, having a purposeful commitment for yourself and your business?
It's by far the number one thing I learned by writing my book. And I will tell you, people were marveling at the fact that I was able to write and get a book published by SHRM, probably even more so than having beat Tiger Woods. That was,
Wow.
I don't think many people think it's possible for me to play golf at that level and beat the greatest player that ever played. I would say I'm in rarefied air in that regard. I gotta go back many years. 18-year-old, he was 16.
Yeah.
But writing a book is something I think a lot of people have thought about. I know most everyone has read a book and they can relate to what that is. That's maybe not as challenging of a feat, but the fact that I did it and I went through that experience to do so, it changed my professional career, Tom, in in me personally, because I realized how many really bad ideas I had when I wrote them down and read them back.
I hear
And
that.
then there were a few good ones, and I've heard that from others, but the one that stood out the most, to me, is this idea, the first tenet of the HR Like a Boss business plan, which is chapter 14 of my book, Treat Your Job or Your Department Like a Business. And I was told when I was writing the book for HR professionals that there's they like how-tos. They want to know what is the step A, B, and C to do this. And having studied business, having studied HR, I realized that most employers lack a clearly defined purpose. And when I say purpose, I don't mean mission. Mission is clear because it's mission, vision, values, and all the consulting that went into that. And you go into every well-run company, they'll have it plastered on the front of their building and inside their walls. But purpose is an organization's aspirational why, the thing that they will never be able to achieve, but they're going to try collectively as much as they possibly can. And I knew that because I studied business. I also, in the course of my presentations before writing my book on HR Like a Boss, I asked people in the audience, does your company have a clearly defined purpose? And I'd get people confused about purpose and mission. We'd have that quick dialogue. And then we'd get to the other question. Okay, if you have a purpose, is it 4 words or less? And I'd go from half the crowd holding their hand up after we figured out mission, purpose. I got maybe 3 or 4 people left. And then inevitably there'd be one person out of 50 to 100 that would have their hand raised.
Wow.
And inevitably it was an HR executive or a representative from a nonprofit who had their purpose was why their business was started. And it was clear to them and their employees. And I write about in the book, to have a purposeful commitment, you have to clearly define your organizational why in 4 words or less. And everyone, and I mean everyone, needs to be able to know what it is, because it's that simple. I think, to me, the reason why that's so important at the top of the list is that people are looking for meaning in the work they do every single day.
Yes.
And a vast majority of human beings want to connect to something bigger than them. And if we're going to spend 78 to 80,000 hours of our lives working, doesn't it make sense to you to do something that you really enjoy doing and that you understand what your job has to do with the greater good of your organization? And the other reason why that was so important to me, Tom, is that I also looked at and talked to a lot of people, and many of them volunteered at nonprofits that they believed in. And I asked every single one of them, knowing the answer to the question, how much did you get paid to volunteer? They would look at me sideways when I asked the question. It's an oxymoron. I'm volunteering. I volunteer for free. Well, imagine if you felt that same way at work. And to me, that's the goal. That's the aspiration. That's what I'm trying to inspire at least one person, hopefully that's listening, to look at their companies or their aspirational why and more clearly define it and use it as a platform to attract better talent, to galvanize your people together, to do something good with the profits that your business makes, and make a difference by attacking real social issues that exist in your community.
I love it. That's I've never heard it defined that succinctly, the purpose versus mission. And you're right. I would probably have my hand down before the end, as much as I'd like to say I'd be that last person with the hand up. I want to take a quick break, but before we do that, Willory, what's your 4-word or less purpose?
We empower people.
I love it. We'll be right back. We're going to dig more into how to HR like a boss. All right, John, are you ready for the HR hot sauce?
No, I'm not, but let's do it.
Let's do it anyways. What most engages you?
Family, golf, and a really, really good, entertaining high school basketball game.
Love that. What is your favorite piece of technology that you use at work?
Dare I say my iPhone? It's the bane of my existence, but I use it the most.
Yeah, I asked that broadly on purpose just to get as wide of a scope of answers as possible. What's your favorite interview question to ask or be asked?
My favorite interview question to ask of candidates for my firm at Willory is, how would you describe you align to our core values? Which usually starts with, I don't know what your core values are, which is really not the greatest response.
Yeah.
And then once I explain what they are, it goes from there. That's probably my favorite one. Be honest, you're talking about an interview for a job. It's been 29 years since I've been on an interview for a job. And
it's a good run.
I think I'd probably be terrible as a candidate for as an interviewee.
I love that honesty. I love it. Here's an easy one. Favorite workday lunch?
Is it the same thing I have pretty much every workday? Is chicken salad made by the wonderful mustard seed market in my local area. I put on top of these field greens, carrots, some balsamic vinaigrette, usually a glass of water, maybe some cashews.
That sounds fantastic, honestly. What's your most unique or useless skill?
By far my most useless skill that I'm the worst at is bad dad jokes. My daughter Mallory would give you that recommendation. If she could put that on my LinkedIn profile, she would. I tell the worst bad dad jokes, which gets me really nothing other than internal entertainment. And when someone laughs at them, I feel like Jerry Seinfeld.
You got one for us?
No, they're all in the moment. I have to tell you, when I wrote my book, HR Like a Boss, one of the strategies that we considered using, my marketing director, Bridget Klein, who's awesome, did so much great work with the book and developing it and supporting the marketing of it. She said, what if we started every chapter or every section with a bad dad joke? And I thought about it, and I realized I don't have any bad dad jokes. I just say things in the moment. I don't have a knock joke, a standard go-to. I'll try to pull one into the show if I can.
I was gonna say, if we can get one into the show, that'd be awesome.
They're not as good when my 14-year-old daughter's not around, because that's my audience of one.
I hear that, and she's honest, I'm sure. What makes your day at work, John?
I love to see when my team members share success stories with their clients and the pride that they have by being able to support their customers, make a difference in their business, in a candidate's life, whatever it might be. Just hearing that this firm that we started 14 years ago is making a difference.
I love it. Final question, mild, medium, hot, or nuclear?
None of the above. I do not like anything hot, and any sort of hot sauce. If it says mild, I think it's lying to me, and I avoid. I go plain.
All right, there we go. That's the HR hot sauce or no sauce. Back to the show. And we're back. It was a great HR hot sauce or no sauce, as I think we had just mentioned. When we took break, we were talking about connecting purpose to yourself and your business. I want to go another step deeper into, the goals of HR Like a Boss. That was a chapter, but tell us more about what our listeners can get out of this book, HR Like a Boss. What they can get out of this philosophy, because it almost feels more like a philosophy than a book. But tell us some of the other nuggets that are coming out of there that you really want listeners to hear and take away.
I tried my best to write a story about amazingly awesome HR. And quite frankly, the branch manager at my bank, who's a friend of mine, hi Bonnie, if you're listening, she gave me the ultimate compliment about my book. She said, when I bought it, I was afraid I was going to fall asleep and it was going to be another one of these snoozer business books about something I have to do at work a little bit, but it's not my primary job. And she said it was nothing like I expected it to be. It was stories. It was your perspective. It was anecdotes. And what I would share with you, Tom, is at the foundation of doing HR Like a Boss, or anything in my mind that would be described as amazingly awesome, you have to love it and you have to take a great degree of ownership of it. I encourage people in the presentations I do that I keynote to think about someone in your life that loves what they do at work and takes a great sense of pride and ownership. You mentioned your dad caddying at Augusta. My guess is your dad owned that job and loved it. I'm just guessing. I know if I was a caddy at Augusta, I would. And that
100%.
that behavior, the way that he acted about that job, probably made you look at work a little bit differently than someone that despises work, complains about it being Friday at 5, celebrates when it's Friday at 5, and it's the bane of their existence when they have to go to bed on Sunday, not wanting to go to work the next day. I think that's a horrible way to live. And I know millions and millions of people do it every day in the U.S. and beyond. And I think I use the word borderline criminal because I'm not necessarily blaming HR professionals for the reason why that is, but I think HR has the greatest opportunity, other than a CEO, to change and transform how people view work through the power of effective human resources. And in the book, we talk about ownership and love, and then we break down the 5 main pillars of what it takes to do HR Like a Boss: thinking differently, being different, being better, taking action, and making an impact. And I outline the things that I've seen over the years professionally where I feel like HR could be seen in a much more strategic light by non-HR professionals. Things like truly hiring great talent,
right,
and driving performance management simply and clearly, and aligning people to the purpose of a business. Those are just a few examples. Leveraging technology, which I know you, Tom, and I are both aligned on as former and current ADPers, the importance of leveraging your HR tech to do more in less time. And in the book, I weave in various stories and suggestions. And probably the coolest part that I kind of dumb lucked into is that I had these ideas and visions and ways of which I thought HR could be done at a different level. And I was able to interview people through my podcast as well as in just traditional means. And as I was telling the story or making the point around leveraging technology, I used quotes and comments from people like Tim Sackett or Claire Stroh or others in the HR community to complement the things that I was suggesting to shine the light on the HR community, that they are real life human beings that care a lot about what they do. They're not the monsters or principal's office that a lot of people make them out to be.
Hear, hear.
And it's a give and take in trying to help them feel celebrated for the work they do as opposed to what most people think about when they hear the words human resources.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main driver of this podcast. That's why we spent the first third of it not talking about HR, just being two human beings out there, because HR is run by humans, run by people. And the people that are doing those jobs need to be inspired and need to come into work. It's that big debate. HR isn't in charge of culture, or can't create culture, or it's not just their job. But I think the reason all that is said is that HR is uniquely positioned to have the most impact on culture through a lot of the different pieces that you talked about. And whether it's, I'm just going to take the hire, fire, admin route, or the, hey, let's put something in here that's performance management. It's going to help the employees and then help the managers and then help the business. That's where I think HR needs to get to. And it is a transformation. Tell me about some of the transformation that you've seen, in some of HR. You've been doing this 30 years. What's some of the positive transformation you've seen really, really ramping up these days?
HR has a double-edged sword, Tom, in that it has a lot of customers it's responsible for, all of the employees. That's a lot. Yep. And then you look at the business and you look at the CEO and you look at shareholders and you look at the community. Those are all customers of human resources, different than a lot of other departments. The only role that I feel has more customers is the CEO. And to answer your question, the transformation that I've seen, it always starts at the top, and right. That's good or bad in many cases. If you have a CEO, an executive leadership team that are invested in building a world-class culture, and then you have an effective HR team that can execute upon that support, to me, that's the formula for success. Any issue that exists in any business has to do with a person. CEO, head of the department, the disgruntled sales rep, the angry or mean customer service rep. It's a person. And we need to attack and address those issues. The other thing that I talk about in my book and in other presentations that I do, Tom, is I think all too often we're focused on the bad and not as focused on the good. And I think a lot of effective HR leaders that I've seen are great at amplifying the strengths of the business, the thing that makes us competitively different.
Love it.
Let's amplify that. Let's put rocket fuel in that instead of the regular 93 octane. Let's let the world know about how great we are at A, B, or C, not so focused on this issue that we have to attack. And a lot of business operating systems that are out there, no disrespect to them, they really focus in on issues and they don't really look to amplify what I describe as opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I think strategy inside of a business is, what issues do we have and how do we mitigate them? What opportunities do we have and how do we optimize them? And then what is our competitive advantage to our customers? And how do we amplify? How do we multiply that? How do we get that out in front of as many people as possible? And I think the HR leaders that have looked at their role in a strategic view, while understanding the balance of the tactical aspects of it, are the ones I've seen be most successful in doing HR like a boss.
I love that. And I also love how you also earlier on and throughout the book, you talk about empowering the youth of the HR community. It's let's fix what's here, let's empower what's here, but let's take this next generation that's very purpose driven, give them the tools and point them towards, a career that is all about driving purpose. I think that's a really great connectivity, and I think that's a great focus on your part. Want to celebrate that. So congratulations on that. And tell us a little bit more, and I know we're running short on time here, so give us a little bit more about, you talked about inspiring the youth. Tell us a little bit more about your focus on, bringing the youth into HR today.
Well, I think it's the mission, it's the purpose of HRC. I just did it. It's the purpose of HR like a boss, and it's really about the celebration of that new movement that's coming into the field of human resources. And as we all know, that generation is looking for more purpose in the work they do every single day. They're not looking at work as maybe traditionally was done by their parents and connecting to something meaningful, something bigger than them. And in addition to that, I think that there's a tremendous opportunity for those individuals that are new to their career or are just getting their college degree to learn from people like you, Tom, or a VP of HR, or someone with a lot of experience, and making those connections happen sooner than later. So there's this transfer of knowledge that can take place, and we can accelerate the youth that are coming into HR to learn from the mistakes and errors of the ways that we had, as well as really promoting the things that work. And to me, that's one of the most important parts about why I'm looking to support those to get their SHRM certification, because they get into that community quicker. They're forced, air quote, to stay within it, to keep their certification. There's networking opportunities, and it's a diverse world that they get to meet up with. And I think if we do that in the right way, the chances are much higher that the future will be bright for us that go to work every single day.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you for the work that you do. I have one last question for you, and that's the last question for everybody. What are you listening to right now?
I was just listening to you ask me that question so I can stay present.
I love that.
But actual things that I listen to, I actually created this playlist that I think hopefully is fun and entertaining for people when they come to an event that I'm hosting, because I like to do this standing ovation thing. If you've ever seen one of my presentations, I like people to feel what it feels like to get a standing ovation, because I don't think many people have had that experience. And I think doing work at a completely different level is like watching a maestro on a particular instrument, or watching your favorite sports athlete hit a triple double or make a hole in one, or whatever the case is. Anyway, I've been going back and forth and researching all these fun songs, and I have this playlist on my Apple Music that has about 20 songs in there that I've been playing nonstop in my car because they make me smile and happy. And it seems like when I play those songs before or after a presentation, people puts a smile on people's face.
I love it. Would you share that? Would you be willing to share that link? I can put it in the show notes.
I if you tell me how to do it, I'd be happy to. I don't even know how to do that.
I'll tell you how to do it. It's great.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
I learned something new. And I said the iPhone was so important to me. I don't even know how to use it. Tom's going to share with me.
There we go. We'll walk you through that. Hopefully we'll be able to share that to everyone. John, this is great. I really appreciate you carving out time. You obviously have a million things going on. It really is special for you to take the time to talk to us and share your belief wisdom. Where can people find you after the podcast, find Willory? Where should they go to connect with you and pick up HR Like a Boss?
3 quick things. Email, easiest way to get a hold of me, john@willory.com, john@WILLORY.com. You can learn about Willory at willory.com, as well as you can book me for speaking engagements if you want. If you know someone else that's doing podcasting, maybe not quite as well as Tom, but someone that's looking for a guest. And also, if you're interested in the book, we've created an entire community that I mentioned before. That's an online community that you can sign up for and be a part of. That's at hrlikeaboss.com.
John, thank you for joining us at Tom's Engaging HR. Guests, everyone listening, thank you for joining us, tuning in. Please subscribe, share with your friends. Until next time, keep working on getting better. See you there.